In 1942, Mahatma Gandhi delivered his impactful Quit India speech regarding the disobedience movement where Indians wanted to break away from the British and become their own independent country. Although it was wartime, Britain was still able to focus on this issue somewhat. However, they originally denied many of India's requests of granting their independence. Winston Churchill believed that India should not gain independence until the war was over, even though American President Franklin D. Roosevelt was putting pressure on Churchill to comply with some of their demands. Many Indians who were profiting from the war disagreed with the Quit India movement, as they would likely lose money if they became independent from Britain. At the time, Gandhi was a member and appointed to be the leader of the All India Congress Committee, which he guided towards nonviolent protests. Many members were eventually arrested the following day of his speech due to the government viewing their committee as an unlawful association under their law. This sparked many more protests across the country, leading to many people either being killed or imprisoned for speaking out against their government. Once Gandhi was released in 1944, he continued to tenaciously support his cause for an independent India by fasting for 21 days. By the end of the World War, Britain decided to give India their independence and no longer ignore the people's requests and desires. So what exactly made Gandhi's Quit India speech so monumental? The perfect trifecta known as logos, pathos, and ethos. There are different forms of appeals littered throughout his speech that either appeal to the audience's emotions, their logic, or how credible they view Gandhi. Before you discuss the resolution, let me place before you one or two things. I want you to understand two things very clearly and to consider them from the same point of view from which I am placing them before you. Right from the beginning of his speech, Gandhi wants his audience to be more open and understanding of his point of view, and he accomplishes this by placing them into his shoes. This is an example of logos because he is trying to appeal to the audience's reasoning and logic by making his point into something everyone, including Britain, can understand. This can also be viewed as pathos as well because it is intended to affect the audience's emotions as for what it would be like to be in Gandhi's position. Let me, however, hasten to assure that I am the same Gandhi as I was in 1920. I have not changed in any fundamental respect. I attach the same importance to nonviolence that I did then. If at all, my emphasis on it has grown stronger. There is no real contradiction between the present resolution and my previous writings and utterances. Gandhi uses ethos in this section of his speech as he is displaying how he is a credible figure who can be trusted. His morals and who he is as a person have remained the same for over 20 years, and this technique can help support his audience's trust in him, aiding him in making his ideas seem more reliable. In a violent struggle, a successful general has been often known to effect a military coup and to set up a dictatorship. But under the Congress scheme of things, essentially non-violent as it is, there can be no room for a dictatorship. A non-violent soldier of freedom will covet nothing for himself. He fights only for the freedom of his country. Gandhi is wielding logos to compare the differences between violent and non-violent displays to help bolster his idea of how to spread a message. This appeals to the audience's logical and emotional appeal, as many people who support his cause all want what's best for India, and that is peaceful protests for independence. It is to join a struggle for such democracy that I invite you today. Once you realize this, you'll forget the difference between the Hindus and Muslims, and think of yourselves as Indians only, engaged in a common struggle for independence. Emotions are what Gandhi is utilizing to unite India as a whole. He knows the only way he can successfully spread his message of peace is through being united. The previous quote does a great job at reaching out towards all Indians rather than just certain groups. I know the British government will not be able to withhold freedom from us when we have made enough self-sacrifice. We must therefore purge ourselves of hatred. Gandhi wants his audience to believe that with perseverance and peace that the British government will have to listen to their demands. People will begin to think that if India works together as a whole, that they will be able to achieve their goal without the use of force. This can be seen as a form of logos because he wants his points to simply make sense based on logic alone. Speaking for myself, I can say that I've never felt any hatred. As a matter of fact, I feel myself to be a greater friend of the British now than ever before. One reason is that they are today in distress. Gandhi doesn't want to make India view Britain as their enemy, but rather as a friend, and he executes this using pathos. By making the British seem like less of an enemy to the rest of India, he is making the use of force seem unnecessary and therefore better expressing his non-violent standpoint.